Commander Sarah Chen stood at the communication console, her coffee growing cold as she stared at the empty screen. The morning reports from the outer colonies should have arrived 3 hours ago. Every day for the past 6 years, like clockwork. The 12 human settlements across 6 star systems sent their status updates to Earth. Today, there was nothing but silence. "Try New Geneva again," she told Lieutenant Rodriguez, who worked at the console next to her. Rodriguez shook his head. "Still nothing, Commander. No response from any of our transmissions." Sarah felt a cold knot form in her stomach. New Geneva was humanity's first colony beyond the solar system, built on Proxima Centauri b. 2 million people called it home. They had the most advanced communication equipment outside of Earth. If anyone should respond, it would be them. "What about the other colonies?" Sarah asked. "Dead silence from all 12 settlements," Rodriguez replied. "Kepler Station, Wolf Prime, Tau Ceti Outpost, all of them. It's like they just stopped existing." Sarah grabbed her secure phone and dialed Admiral Marcus Webb's direct line. The old soldier answered on the first ring, his voice rough from years of commanding humanity's defense forces. "Webb here. Admiral, we have a problem. All our outer colonies have gone silent." There was a pause. "All of them?" "Every single one, sir. No distress calls, no emergency beacons, nothing. They just stopped transmitting. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let this information leave that room." Sarah hung up and looked around the communications center. 6 technicians worked at their stations, all wearing confused expressions. Word would spread quickly if she didn't act fast. "Everyone listen up," she announced. "What we're dealing with here is classified until further notice. No talking to family, friends, or anyone outside this facility. Is that understood?" The technicians nodded, but Sarah could see the fear in their eyes. They all had friends and family on the colonies. Many had applied for transfers themselves. Admiral Webb arrived exactly 20 minutes later, accompanied by Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Colonial Defense Council's chief scientist. Webb was a big man with gray hair and scars from the Mars Rebellion 20 years earlier. Vasquez was small and quick, her mind always racing ahead of everyone else in the room. "Show me what you have," Webb said without greeting anyone. Sarah pulled up the colony network display on the main screen. 12 red dots marked the dead colonies scattered across 6 star systems. Each dot represented millions of human lives. "The last transmission from any colony was 18 hours ago," Sarah explained. "New Geneva reported normal operations at 600 their local time. Since then, complete radio silence." Vasquez studied the display, her fingers drumming against her tablet. "What about the automated systems? Weather monitoring, power grid status, anything?" "Nothing," Rodriguez answered. "Every single automated system has stopped broadcasting." Webb crossed his arms. "Equipment failure?" "Not possible, sir," Sarah said. "Each colony has 3 separate communication arrays with independent power sources. The chances of total system failure across all 12 colonies at roughly the same time are basically 0. Vasquez looked up from her tablet. "I'm seeing something interesting in the timing. The communications didn't all stop at once. They stopped in a pattern." She moved to the display and highlighted each colony with her stylus. New Geneva went quiet first, then Wolf Prime 6 hours later, then Kepler Station 4 hours after that. "If you plot it out, there's a clear progression moving inward toward Earth." Webb's expression darkened, like something was moving from colony to colony. "That's what it looks like," Vasquez agreed. "Something systematic, methodical." Sarah felt the room grow colder. "Should we send rescue ships?" Webb was quiet for a long moment, staring at the red dots on the screen. Finally he spoke. "Yes, but not all at once. I want 1 ship sent to each of the 3 closest colonies, fast ships with experienced crews. They go in, do a quick survey, and get out. No heroics. Over the next 2 days, the rescue ships reached their destinations. The reports that came back made no sense. Captain Torres of the UES, Vigilant, was the first to arrive at Wolf Prime. His voice cracked over the long-range communicator as he described what he found. "The planet looks normal from orbit. Weather patterns are unchanged. No signs of massive explosions or bombardment. But there's nothing here. No cities, no infrastructure, no sign that humans were ever on this world." "What do you mean, nothing?" Webb demanded. "I mean nothing, Admiral. The sites where we built our cities are empty. Not destroyed, not damaged, empty. Like someone took a giant eraser and removed every trace of human presence. The landscape has been restored to its natural state." The report from Captain Martinez at Kepler Station was identical. 2 million colonists gone without a trace. Every building, every road, every piece of human technology had vanished. The planet looked exactly as it had before humans arrived. But it was Captain Liu's report from New Geneva that sent chills through everyone in the command center. Admiral, I'm detecting something odd. There are geometric patterns in the vegetation around the former colony sites. Perfect circles and lines that don't occur in nature. It's like someone left a signature. Vasquez leaned forward. Can you get closer images? Already on it. Transmitting now. The images appeared on the main screen. Vast circles of different colored vegetation marked the landscape, creating patterns that could only be seen from space. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Those are messages, Vasquez whispered. Geometric languages are common in advanced mathematics. Someone is trying to communicate. Webb studied the patterns. What do they say? I need more time to analyze them, but the basic structure suggests a warning or declaration. The symmetry is too perfect to be random. Over the following week, more rescue ships returned with identical reports. 12 thriving human colonies, home to over 20 million people, had simply vanished. Every building, every piece of technology, every trace of human presence had been erased. The only evidence that humans had ever been there were the strange geometric patterns left behind in the vegetation. Sarah found herself working 18-hour days, coordinating with search teams and trying to make sense of the impossible. She had friends on New Geneva, people she had grown up with who had been excited about starting new lives among the stars. Now they were gone, and she didn't even know if they were alive or dead. Any luck with the patterns? She asked Vasquez during one of their late-night strategy sessions. The scientist looked exhausted. I've run them through every linguistic algorithm we have. The mathematics are incredibly complex, more advanced than anything in our databases, but I think I'm starting to understand the basic message structure. And it's a warning. The patterns are telling us that these worlds have been cleansed for violations of some kind of law or standard. There are references to unworthy expansion and primitive aggression. Webb, who had been listening from across the room, walked over to join them. You're saying someone judged us and found us wanting? That's what it looks like. The patterns suggest that our colonies were removed because we didn't meet some kind of standard for interstellar expansion. Sarah felt anger building in her chest. 20 million people gone just like that. Because someone decided we weren't good enough? It gets worse, Vasquez continued. The final pattern at each site contains what I think is a countdown. Based on the mathematical progression, I believe we have about 30 Earth days before something else happens. Webb's jaw tightened. They're coming for Earth. The next morning, Webb called an emergency session of the Colonial Defense Council. Sarah and Vasquez joined him in the secure briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon. Around the table sat the most powerful military and political leaders on Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb began, we are facing an extinction-level threat. An unknown force has eliminated all 12 of our outer colonies and appears to be planning an assault on Earth itself. The room erupted in questions and arguments. Some council members demanded immediate military action. Others insisted on attempting diplomatic contact. A few suggested evacuating Earth entirely. Webb waited for the noise to die down. We don't know who we're dealing with, but their technology is far beyond ours. They can erase entire civilizations without leaving a trace. They can reshape planetary surfaces at will. And they're coming here in 30 days. General Harrison, the Council's senior military advisor, leaned forward. What are our options? Right now we have 3 choices, Webb replied. We can try to run, though I doubt we could evacuate more than a fraction of Earth's population in 30 days. We can try to negotiate, though these beings have already shown they prefer action to words. Or we can fight. Fight with what? Asked Secretary Morgan, the civilian leader of the council. You just said their technology is beyond ours. Webb was quiet for a moment. We fight with what we have, and hope that being human is enough. Sarah watched the faces around the table. She saw fear, anger, and determination. Earth had faced extinction before, from asteroids and climate change and war. Humanity had always found a way to survive. But this was different. This was an enemy they couldn't understand, using weapons they couldn't match for reasons that made no sense to human minds. I need volunteers, Webb announced. People willing to do whatever it takes to protect our world. This won't be a traditional war. We're going to have to think differently, act differently, become something our enemy doesn't expect. Sarah stood up. "I volunteer, sir." One by one, others around the table rose to their feet. By the end of the meeting, everyone in the room had committed to the fight. As they filed out of the briefing room, Vasquez pulled Sarah aside. "I've been thinking about those patterns. There's something about them that bothers me." "What do you mean?" "They're too perfect. Too clean. Whoever did this has technology that can reshape matter at the molecular level. But they chose to leave messages in plant growth patterns. It's like they want us to know what happened." Sarah considered this. Maybe they're trying to scare us. Or maybe they're following rules we don't understand. Laws that require them to give warnings before taking action. "You think they'll give us a chance to surrender?" Vasquez nodded. "I think they're going to offer us the same choice they probably offered the colonies. Submit or be cleansed." Sarah looked back toward the briefing room where Webb was still talking with the military leaders. "And if we refuse to submit? Then we find out what happens when someone underestimates the human species." As Sarah left the Pentagon that evening, she looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, something was coming for Earth. Something that had already proven it could erase human civilization with casual ease. But humans had never been good at accepting defeat. They had crawled out of caves and across continents, survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. They had reached for the stars despite every obstacle in their path. Now something from those stars was coming to judge whether humanity deserved to exist. Sarah smiled grimly as she got into her car. Whoever was coming was about to learn that humans didn't ask permission to exist. They didn't submit to judgment from anyone. They fought. Captain James Morrison had been patrolling the outer edge of the solar system for 3 months when his sensors detected something impossible. The UES Defiant, humanity's most advanced deep space patrol vessel, had been searching for any sign of the force that destroyed the colonies. Now 40 billion kilometers from Earth, that force had found them. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Park called from the sensor station, her voice tight with fear. Morrison moved to her console and felt his blood turn cold. The display showed 12 massive objects approaching from interstellar space. Each one was larger than Earth's moon, moving in perfect formation at a speed that should have been impossible for something so large. "How long until they reach the inner system?" Morrison asked. Park's fingers danced over her controls. "At their current velocity, approximately 6 hours. But Captain, there's something else. I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. These ships are generating power levels that rival our sun." Morrison activated the ship's emergency beacon, transmitting their findings directly to Earth. Then he ordered his crew to fall back to a safer distance while maintaining visual contact with the approaching fleet. The alien vessels moved with mathematical precision, never deviating from their course or formation. As they drew closer, the Defiant sensors revealed details that defied human understanding. The ship seemed to be made of a material that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. Their surfaces rippled with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. "They're slowing down," Park reported, taking position at the edge of the asteroid belt. Morrison watched on the main display as the 12 vessels arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the solar system. Each ship was positioned with geometric precision, creating a cage of alien technology around humanity's home. "Any response to our attempts at communication?" Morrison asked. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim shook her head. "Nothing on any frequency we've tried. But Captain, I'm detecting some kind of energy buildup from the lead vessel." The space between the alien ships began to glow with soft blue light. The light gathered into a single point directly between Earth and Mars, growing brighter until it became a miniature star. Then impossibly, the light began to take shape. A figure materialized in the vacuum of space, human-sized but clearly not human. It was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to be made of the same shifting energy as the ships. Its eyes were points of brilliant white light, and when it spoke, its voice reached every human communication device in the solar system simultaneously. "People of the third planet," the figure said, its voice carrying the weight of ages. "I am Harold Zephon of the Hegemony of Ascended Worlds. You will listen." On Earth, Admiral Webb stood in the emergency command center surrounded by the leaders of every major nation. The alien's image appeared on screens around the world, broadcasting on every frequency. "We are the guardians of this galactic region," Harold Zephon continued. "For 12 million of your years we have maintained peace and order among the stars. We have watched your species since you first looked up at the night sky and wondered if you were alone. The herald raised one hand, and the space around it filled with images, scenes from human history played out in 3 dimensions. Wars, environmental destruction, the extinction of countless species, the building and destruction of civilizations. You have been judged, Zephon said. Your expansion beyond your birth world violated the fundamental laws of galactic civilization. You carry violence in your genetic code. You destroy the worlds you inhabit. You wage war against your own species for resources and territory. Webb felt his hands clench into fists. Around him, world leaders watched in stunned silence as their entire species was put on trial by beings they had never known existed. Your colonies have been cleansed, the herald continued. The 20 million individuals living on those worlds have been relocated to worlds more suitable for primitive species. They live, but they will never again pollute the galaxy with their presence. A collective gasp went up from everyone in the command center. The colonists were alive. Imprisoned somewhere, but alive. You have 30 of your solar rotations to make a choice, Zephon announced. Dismantle all technology beyond your planetary atmosphere. Recall all vessels to your homeworld. Submit to permanent containment within your solar system. Do this, and your species will be allowed to continue existing within the bounds of your birth system. The images around the herald changed, showing human space stations, ships, and satellites being systematically destroyed by weapons that turned matter into energy with casual ease. Refuse, Zephon said, and your world will be cleansed as your colonies were cleansed. Your species will join the others we have relocated to preserve galactic peace. You will be given new worlds to inhabit, worlds where you cannot harm anyone but yourselves. Dr. Vasquez, who had been studying the alien technology readings, suddenly grabbed Webb's arm. Admiral, look at the power signatures. They're not just threatening us, they have the ability to move our entire planet if they want to. The herald seemed to hear her words despite the impossible distance. The human designated as scientist is correct. We possess the technology to relocate stellar bodies. Your world can be moved to any location we choose. Placed in orbit around any star we select, you need not die, but you will never again threaten the peace of civilized species. President Martinez of the Earth Alliance stepped forward. What gives you the right to judge us? What makes you think you're better than humanity? Harold Zephon's glowing eyes fixed on the president. We have evolved beyond the need for violence. We have not waged war in 8 million years. We do not consume more resources than we need. We do not destroy the ecosystems of our worlds. We do not torture other species for entertainment or kill them for food when alternatives exist. The herald gestured, and new images appeared showing the hegemony worlds, beautiful planets where different species lived in perfect harmony. Their cities integrated seamlessly with natural ecosystems, technology that worked with nature instead of against it. Beings who had transcended the need for conflict or competition. This is what civilization looks like when a species grows beyond its primitive origins, Zephon explained. This is what you could become, given enough time and proper guidance. But first you must be contained until you learn to control your violent impulses. Secretary General Chen of the United Nations stepped forward. And if we refuse to be contained? If we choose to fight? For the first time, Herald Zephon showed something that might have been emotion. The light around its form flickered, and its voice carried a note of what sounded almost like sadness. Then you will demonstrate exactly why your species requires containment. You will prove that violence is your first response to any challenge. You will validate every observation we have made about your primitive nature. The herald paused, and when it spoke again, its voice was gentler. We do not wish to relocate your entire species. Many of you show potential for growth beyond your current limitations, but we will not allow you to spread your violence to other worlds. The galaxy has seen too much war, too much destruction. We exist to prevent such things from happening again. Webb found his voice. You say our colonists are alive. Where are they? They have been relocated to a world in a distant system, far from any civilized species. It is a good world, suitable for your biology. They will live full lives, but they will never again leave that system. Their children will grow up in peace without the knowledge that violence is an option. You're talking about prison, Webb said. We prefer the term sanctuary, Zephon replied. A place where your species can exist without threatening others. Captain Morrison, still watching from the Defiant, opened a communication channel. Harold Zephon, may I ask a question? The alien figure turned its attention to him. Speak, Guardian of the Void. How many species have you relocated? 43, Zephon answered without hesitation. All showed the same pattern as your species. Rapid technological advancement combined with uncontrolled aggressive impulses. All chose violence when offered the choice of peaceful containment. Morrison felt his heart sink. And how many chose peaceful containment? None, the Herald said simply. Violent species always choose violence. It is their nature. We expect no different from humanity. The statement hung in space like a challenge. Around Earth, humanity watched their judge and jury deliver what sounded like a death sentence. Not death of the body, but death of everything that made them human. Death of exploration, of dreams, of the hope that they might someday walk among the stars as equals. President Martinez spoke again. What if you're wrong about us? What if we can prove we're capable of more than violence? Harold Zephon was quiet for a long moment. In 12 million years, we have never been wrong about such things. Primitive species follow predictable patterns, but if you believe otherwise, you have 30 rotations to prove it. Use that time wisely. The alien figure began to fade. We will not communicate with you again until the deadline expires. Use the time to prepare your people for relocation. Make the transition easier by accepting the inevitable. Wait, Webb called out. You say you've been watching us for our entire history. What makes you think you understand us? The Herald paused in its dissolution. We understand you because we were once like you. Long ago, my species nearly destroyed itself through warfare and environmental catastrophe. We were saved by beings similar to what we have now become. They taught us that true strength comes from transcending violence, not embracing it. And if they had been wrong? Webb pressed. If they had contained your species before you had a chance to evolve, then the galaxy would be a safer place, Zephon replied. But that did not happen. We proved ourselves worthy of freedom through millions of years of peaceful development. Your species has existed for a fraction of that time, and has already spread violence to 12 worlds. The Herald's image flickered one final time. 30 rotations, it said, and then vanished. The space around the alien ships returned to normal, but the vessels remained in their perfect formation, a constant reminder that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. In the command center on Earth, silence stretched for nearly a minute before anyone spoke. Well, President Martinez said finally, that could have gone better. Webb turned to face the assembled world leaders. We need to assume they meant every word. They have the technology to relocate our entire planet, and they've done this 43 times before. As far as they're concerned, we're just another violent species that needs to be contained. But our colonists are alive, Secretary General Chen pointed out. That's something. Alive and imprisoned, Webb corrected, along with the eventual fate of our entire species if we don't figure out a way to change their minds. Vasquez looked up from her analysis tablet. Admiral, I've been studying the energy patterns around their ships. The technology they're using is based on quantum field manipulation, at a scale I didn't think was possible. But there's something interesting about the pattern stability. What do you mean? The fields are perfectly ordered, mathematically precise. It's like their entire technological base depends on maintaining perfect harmony and balance. Any disruption to that harmony might affect their systems. Webb nodded slowly. Are you saying we might have a weakness to exploit? I'm saying their greatest strength might also be their greatest vulnerability. They've evolved to eliminate chaos and unpredictability from their existence, but humans specialize in chaos and unpredictability. Around the room, the world leaders exchanged glances. For the first time since the alien ultimatum, there was something that might be hope in their eyes. 30 days, Webb said. 30 days to either surrender everything that makes us human, or find a way to fight gods. He looked around the room at the faces of the people who would decide humanity's fate. I suggest we get to work. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially did not exist, Admiral Webb stood before a massive display showing the countdown to humanity's deadline. 22 days remained. Around him, the brightest minds on Earth worked frantically to find a way to fight an enemy that could move planets. Show me what we have, Webb said to Dr. Vasquez, who looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Vasquez activated the holographic display in the center of the room. 3-dimensional models of the alien ships appeared, rotating slowly to show every angle their sensors had captured. We've analyzed every bit of data from the hegemony ships, she began. Their technology is based on something we're calling quantum harmony fields. Imagine if you could control matter and energy by singing the right mathematical song. Colonel Sarah Chen, newly promoted after her work during the crisis, leaned forward.
Singing?
It's a metaphor, Vasquez explained. Their ships maintain perfect mathematical relationships between all their systems. Every component operates in precise harmony with every other component. It's incredibly efficient, but it requires absolute predictability. Webb studied the spinning ship models. What happens if you introduce something unpredictable? That's what we're trying to find out. I've been running simulations based on human behavioral patterns, and the results are interesting. Vasquez pulled up a new display showing wave patterns. Human emotions, particularly strong emotions, generate quantum field fluctuations that are completely chaotic. Fear, rage, love, desperation, they create patterns that can't be calculated or predicted. General Harrison, Webb's military advisor, crossed his arms. Are you saying our feelings can hurt their ships? I'm saying our feelings might be able to disrupt their ships, Vasquez corrected. The hegemony has eliminated chaos from their existence. They've evolved past emotional responses. Their technology literally can't account for the kind of quantum static that human consciousness generates under extreme stress. Webb felt something that might have been hope stirring in his chest. Can we weaponize this? I think so. I've been working with the team to develop something we're calling the Chaos Protocol. Instead of trying to match their technology, we use our humanity against them. She gestured, and the display changed to show human ships equipped with strange new devices. These are quantum resonance amplifiers. They take the natural quantum fluctuations generated by human consciousness and amplify them into weapons. The more afraid, angry, or desperate the operator becomes, the more powerful the weapon. Colonel Chen stared at the designs. You're turning our emotions into guns. I'm turning our emotions into something the hegemony can't defend against, Vasquez replied. Their entire civilization is based on the elimination of chaos and unpredictability. We specialize in both. Over the next week, every major military installation on Earth was converted to produce the new weapon systems. The quantum resonance amplifiers were just the beginning. Human engineers working around the clock developed technologies that would have been considered impossible just months earlier. Dr. Marcus Reed, formerly of the Mars Terraforming Project, presented his team's work to the War Council. We call them berserker pods, he explained, showing designs for single-pilot spacecraft that looked more like torture devices than vehicles. The pilot is connected directly to the ship's systems through neural interface. Every emotion they feel is transmitted into the ship's weapons and defensive systems. Fear makes the shield stronger, anger makes the weapons more powerful. And if a pilot is willing to sacrifice everything, he paused and his voice dropped. If a pilot embraces the certainty of death, the ship becomes something the hegemony's computers can't process. A weapon that operates on principles their technology can't understand. Webb studied the pod designs. They were clearly suicide missions. How many pilots have volunteered? All of them, sir. Every single pilot in the fleet has volunteered for the Berserker program. Across the facility, other teams worked on equally desperate projects. The asteroid mining stations were converted into kinetic weapon platforms, hurling massive chunks of rock at near light speed toward the edges of the solar system. The space elevators became launch platforms for weapons that used human irrationality as their targeting systems. But the most ambitious project was being developed in a secure lab 3 levels below the main facility. Dr. Elizabeth Santos, the youngest Nobel Prize winner in history, was working on something she called the Omega Protocol. Admiral, she said when Webb visited her lab, what I'm about to show you is the most insane thing any human has ever conceived. It violates every principle of rational behavior and strategic thinking. She led him to a sealed chamber where a single device sat on a pedestal. It looked innocent enough, a sphere of polished metal covered in human handprints. What does it do? Webb asked. Santos took a deep breath. It turns our entire solar system into a weapon. If we activate it, every human being in the system becomes part of a massive quantum resonance field. Every emotion, every thought, every desperate act of defiance gets amplified and broadcast at the hegemony ships. Webb felt his blood turn cold. What's the cost? Everyone dies, Santos said simply. But they die in a way that will create so much quantum chaos that it might destroy the hegemony fleet. Maybe even send a signal to every other contained species that the gods can be killed. Webb stared at the device. That's not victory. That's mutual annihilation. Sometimes that's the only victory possible, Santos replied. The hegemony thinks they understand us. They think we're just another violent species that will surrender when faced with superior force. They don't understand that humans would rather burn the universe down than live as slaves. As the deadline approached, more volunteers stepped forward than there were positions to fill. Captain Morrison of the Defiant requested permission to convert his ship into what he called a chaos bomb, a vessel that would ram the hegemony flagship while broadcasting the raw emotional data of its dying. Lieutenant Park, his sensor officer, presented her own project. I call it the Scream Protocol, she explained. Every human communication device in the system broadcasts a single message when the fighting starts. Not words, but pure emotional energy. The sound of 8 billion people refusing to surrender. Colonel Chen coordinated the integration of all these systems into a single battle plan. It was unlike any military strategy in human history. Instead of trying to outthink or outmaneuver the enemy, they planned to become so chaotic and unpredictable that the enemy's superior intellect would work against them. The hegemony has fought 43 other species, she explained to the assembled commanders. Every one of them probably tried to match the aliens' technology, to fight them on their terms. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to be so human that their computers crash trying to understand us. 3 days before the deadline, Harold Zephon appeared again in the space between Earth and Mars. This time, however, there was no formal address. The alien figure simply stood in the void, observing the frantic activity throughout the solar system. When it spoke, its voice reached only the military command centers around Earth. You prepare for war, it said, its tone carrying what sounded like disappointment. Like the 43 species before you, you choose violence over wisdom. Admiral Webb activated the communication system. We choose freedom over slavery. You choose extinction over evolution, Zephon replied. We had hoped your species might be different. Your literature speaks of growth, of becoming better than your nature. Yet when faced with the choice, you revert to your primitive instincts. Maybe our primitive instincts are what make us strong, Webb said. The Herald was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried an emotion that might have been sadness. You cannot comprehend the forces you are choosing to face. Our technology can dismantle your world atom by atom. Our wisdom spans millions of years. Your weapons are powered by chaos and emotion, the very things that civilized species learn to overcome. Dr. Vasquez activated her own communicator. Harold Zephon, can I ask you something? The alien figure turned its attention to her. Speak, seeker of knowledge. You said your species was once like us. What happened to the beings who saved you from yourselves, the ones who taught you to transcend violence? Zephon was silent for so long that Vasquez wondered if it would answer. Finally it spoke. They ascended beyond physical existence. They became one with the mathematical principles that govern reality itself. Or, Vasquez said quietly, they died out because they forgot how to fight when something worse than you came along. The Herald's form flickered with what looked like anger. Nothing is worse than chaos and violence. Nothing is more destructive than beings who choose war over peace. What about beings who choose slavery over freedom? Webb interjected. What about those who crush the dreams of entire species because they're afraid of a little chaos? We maintain order, Zephon replied, but its voice seemed less certain than before. You maintain control, Colonel Chen said, joining the conversation. You've made yourselves into gods because you're terrified of what happens when people think for themselves. The Herald began to fade. In 3 of your rotations, you will learn the difference between gods and mortals. Prepare your people for relocation. It will be less traumatic if they are ready. We'll be ready, Webb promised, but not in the way you think. After Zephon vanished, the command center fell silent. Everyone understood what was coming. In 3 days, humanity would face beings with the power of gods, using weapons made from their own emotions and a willingness to die rather than surrender. Dr. Santos approached Admiral Webb. Sir, I need your authorization for the Omega Protocol. If our conventional weapons fail, if the Chaos weapons don't work, we need to be ready for the final option. Webb looked around the command center at the faces of the people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They would rather die free than live as prisoners. Authorization granted, he said. If we can't win, we'll make sure the galaxy remembers that someone tried to stop the gods. Colonel Chen checked the countdown display. 72 hours, Admiral? Webb nodded. 72 hours to teach the universe that humanity doesn't ask permission to exist. In the depths of space, the hegemony ships began to glow with increasing intensity. Their perfect formations shifted into attack patterns that had conquered 43 other worlds. Their quantum harmony fields reached perfect resonance, ready to begin the process of relocating another violent species to a distant prison. But on Earth and throughout the solar system, 8 billion humans prepared to show their judges something that had never appeared in any mathematical equation or logical analysis. They prepared to show them what happened when cornered animals decided to bare their teeth. The 30 days had expired at 0600 Earth Standard Time. Harold Zephon materialized in the void between Earth and Mars exactly on schedule, its form blazing with the mathematical perfection that defined the hegemony. Around the solar system, the 12 alien vessels began to glow with increasing intensity as they prepared to cleanse another primitive world. People of Earth, Zephon's voice echoed across every communication device on the planet. Your time has ended. You have chosen violence over wisdom, chaos over order. Prepare for relocation. Admiral Webb stood in the underground command center, watching the alien ships power up their cleansing weapons. Around him, hundreds of technicians and officers waited for his signal. 8 billion human beings held their breath as their species faced judgment. Open a channel, Webb ordered. Channel open, sir. Webb activated his communicator, knowing his words would reach not just the Herald, but every human ship and station throughout the solar system. Harold Zephon, you said we would choose violence over wisdom. You were wrong. The Herald's glowing form turned toward Earth. Your weapons are powered and ready. Your ships hide throughout your system like predators preparing to strike. How is this not choosing violence? Because, Webb said, his voice carrying across the solar system to every human ear. We didn't choose violence. We chose freedom, and sometimes freedom requires a fight. He paused, then spoke the words that would echo through human history. All units, this is Admiral Webb. Execute Chaos Protocol. Show them what humans really are. The response was immediate and terrible. From the asteroid belt, Captain Morrison's converted Deep Space Patrol ship Defiant emerged from behind a massive rock, its hull glowing with the same quantum energy as the alien vessels. But where the hegemony's energy was ordered and mathematical, the Defiant's field writhed with chaotic patterns that hurt to look at directly. Morrison, connected to his ship through the neural interface, felt every emotion of his crew flooding through the vessel's systems: fear, anger, desperate love for the families they would never see again. It all became fuel for weapons that operated on principles no hegemony computer could calculate. This is Defiant, Morrison broadcast to the alien fleet. We're the demons you created when you took our colonies. Time to meet your makers. The ship accelerated toward the nearest hegemony vessel at impossible speed, its chaos field growing stronger as Morrison's terror and rage peaked. The alien ship's perfectly ordered defenses tried to calculate an intercept course, but the Defiant's trajectory kept changing as Morrison's emotions shifted from moment to moment. When the two ships met, the collision was unlike anything in recorded history. The hegemony vessel's quantum harmony fields, faced with pure chaos, began to fluctuate wildly. Systems that had operated flawlessly for millions of years suddenly couldn't maintain synchronization. The mathematical perfection that powered the alien technology became its weakness when faced with patterns it couldn't predict or understand. The hegemony ship exploded in a cascade of uncontrolled energy as its harmony fields collapsed. Morrison and his crew died in the blast, but their sacrifice sent shockwaves through the enemy formation. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes played out as human crews activated their chaos weapons. Lieutenant Park, now commanding her own vessel, broadcast what she called the Scream Protocol, a transmission that carried the raw emotional data of every human in the solar system directly into the hegemony ship's communication arrays. The aliens had spent millions of years eliminating emotional responses from their existence. Their neural systems, evolved for perfect logical processing, couldn't handle the chaotic flood of human consciousness. Several hegemony ships simply shut down as their crews were overwhelmed by emotions they had no framework for understanding. Harold Zephon watched in growing alarm as its fleet began to falter. "This is impossible," it broadcast to the remaining ships. "Primitive emotional responses cannot overcome advanced technology." But the impossible was happening. Human ships, powered by the very chaos and unpredictability the hegemony despised, were tearing through the alien formation. Every human pilot who died took their ship's emotional resonance with them, creating quantum explosions that disrupted nearby enemy vessels. Colonel Chen, leading a squadron of berserker pods from Luna Base, activated her neural link and felt her consciousness merge with her weapon systems. The pod responded to her slightest emotional shift, becoming more agile as her fear peaked and more deadly as her anger consumed her. "Chen, to all berserker units," she broadcast. "Remember what they did to our colonies. Remember the 20 million people they stole from us. Let that rage fuel your weapons." The berserker pods swarmed the hegemony ships like angry hornets, too small and chaotic for the alien targeting systems to track effectively. Each pod was piloted by someone willing to die for humanity's freedom, and their certainty of death created quantum fields so unstable that they defied analysis. When Chen's pod finally succumbed to alien fire, her dying scream of defiance was amplified through her ship's systems and transmitted directly into the nearest hegemony vessel. The alien crew, faced with the raw experience of human mortality and rage, couldn't process what they were receiving. Their ship drifted away from the battle, its crew catatonic from emotional overload. On Earth, Dr. Vasquez monitored the battle from the command center. "Admiral, it's working. The chaos fields are disrupting their harmony systems faster than they can compensate, but we're losing ships fast." Webb watched the tactical display as human vessels died by the dozens, each death a sacrifice that weakened the enemy. "How many hegemony ships are still combat effective?" 7 out of 12. "But Admiral, they're adapting. The remaining ships are trying to isolate themselves from our emotional broadcasts. Then it's time for the next phase." Webb activated the system-wide communicator. "All units, execute Lazarus Protocol. Wake the sleeping giant." Throughout the solar system, automated systems that had been hidden in asteroids, space stations, and even Earth's moon suddenly came online. Humanity had spent the 30 days not just building weapons, but preparing the entire solar system as a trap. Massive kinetic weapons that had been disguised as mining equipment began launching chunks of asteroid at near light speed toward the hegemony ships. Space elevators became railguns, firing projectiles powered by the combined emotional energy of everyone on Earth. Even the orbital communication satellites transformed into weapons, broadcasting pure human chaos at frequencies that made the alien technology unstable. But the hegemony was not defenseless. Harold Zephon, realizing that conventional tactics were failing, activated emergency protocols that hadn't been used in millions of years. The remaining alien ships began to glow with increasing intensity as they prepared to implement what the hegemony called final cleansing, the complete annihilation of everything in the solar system. "Primitive species," Zephon broadcast, its voice carrying new harmonics of power. "You have forced us to methods we abandoned long ago. Your chaos ends now." The Herald's form began to expand, growing larger and brighter as it channeled the combined power of the remaining hegemony ships. Space itself began to warp around the alien formation as they prepared to collapse the solar system's star and end humanity's resistance permanently. Webb felt his heart sink as he watched the power readings spike beyond anything they had planned for. "Vasquez, can our weapons affect that level of energy concentration?" "No, sir. They're drawing power directly from hyperspace. It's like they're becoming a black hole." "Time until they can complete the process?" 15 minutes, maybe less." Webb looked around the command center at the faces of the people who had fought so hard to save their species. They had proven that humans could hurt the gods, but it might not be enough. "Dr. Santos," he called to the scientist who had developed the Omega Protocol. "Is your device ready?" Santos nodded grimly. "Ready and armed, Admiral. One activation, and every human in the system becomes part of a quantum resonance cascade. It should generate enough chaos energy to destabilize whatever they're building. What are the odds it works? Unknown. We'd be attempting something that's never been tried by any species in galactic history. We'd be weaponizing the death of an entire civilization." Webb was quiet for a moment, weighing 8 billion lives against the possibility of freedom. Then he made the decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "Do it!" As Santos moved toward the Omega device, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. On the main display, new contacts were appearing throughout the solar system. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rodriguez called out from his sensor station. "I'm reading massive energy signatures emerging from hyperspace. But sir, these aren't hegemony ships." Webb stared at the display as dozens of vessels appeared around the solar system. They were clearly alien, but their designs were nothing like the perfect geometric forms of the hegemony ships. These vessels were asymmetrical, chaotic, almost organic in appearance. A new voice cut across all communication frequencies, speaking in accented but clear English. "Hegemony Fleet, this is War Chief Craxon of the Liberated Worlds Alliance. You are ordered to cease hostile actions against the human species immediately." Harold Zephon's expanding form flickered with what might have been surprise. "The contained species? How did you escape your sanctuary worlds?" "The same way the humans are escaping now," Craxon replied. "We learned that gods bleed when enough people are willing to make them." The newcomer ships opened fire on the hegemony vessels with weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Instead of ordered energy beams, they fired bursts of pure chaos that twisted space-time around them. Webb opened a channel to the unknown ally. "War Chief Craxon, this is Admiral Webb of Earth Defense Command. We appreciate the assistance, but how did you find us?" "Your emotional broadcasts have been reaching across the galaxy," Craxon replied. 43 contained species felt your rage and decided it was time to be free. The hegemony has ruled through fear for too long. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millions of years. On one side, the mathematical perfection of the hegemony, with technology that could reshape reality itself. On the other, an alliance of species that had learned to weaponize chaos, unpredictability, and the simple refusal to surrender. Harold Zephon, its form now blazing like a star, fought desperately to complete the cleansing protocol, but surrounded by chaos fields from multiple species, its perfect calculations kept failing. The quantum harmony that powered the hegemony began to break down under the assault of pure disorder. "This cannot be," Zephon broadcast. "Order must triumph over chaos. Logic must defeat emotion. This is the fundamental law of the universe." Admiral Webb, watching from Earth as the battle raged around them, activated his communicator one final time. "Harold Zephon, you're wrong about the fundamental law of the universe. The real law is that nothing stays the same forever, not even gods." The hegemony's formation began to collapse as more and more ships fell to the chaotic weapons of the Alliance. Harold Zephon's form flickered and began to shrink as the quantum fields that maintained its existence became unstable. "You have doomed the galaxy," Zephon said, its voice fading. "Without our guidance, the younger species will destroy themselves and each other." "Maybe," Webb replied, "but they'll do it free." Harold Zephon's form dissolved into scattered energy as the last of the hegemony ships exploded in cascades of uncontrolled quantum fire. For the first time in 12 million years, the self-appointed guardians of galactic civilization had been defeated. As the alien wreckage drifted away from Earth, War Chief Craxon's ship approached the planet. "Admiral Webb, on behalf of the 43 liberated species, we thank humanity for showing us that the gods could be killed." "What will you do now?" Webb looked around the command center at the faces of the people who had saved their species through sheer stubbornness and a refusal to accept defeat. "We're going to rebuild our colonies. All of them. And then we're going to make sure no one ever again has to choose between freedom and survival. The galaxy will be a more dangerous place without the hegemony's order," Craxon warned. Webb smiled. "Good, order is overrated anyway." 2 years after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Webb stood on the observation deck of the UES Retribution, humanity's first purpose-built battleship. Through the massive windows, he could see the rebuilt cities of New Geneva glowing like jewels against the surface of Proxima Centauri b. The colony that had been the first to vanish was now the first to be reclaimed. "Admiral," Colonel Chen called from the ship's bridge, "we're receiving a surrender transmission from the hegemony remnant fleet in the Vega system." Webb smiled grimly. The war that began with humanity facing extinction had become a galaxy-wide revolution. The 43 species that had joined the Liberated Worlds Alliance were now 47. And more joined every month as word spread that the ancient rulers could be defeated. "What do they want?" Webb asked as he made his way to the bridge. "The usual," Chen replied. "Complete amnesty in exchange for technological data and the locations of the remaining sanctuary worlds." Webb settled into his command chair and studied the tactical display. The Vega system had been one of the hegemony's regional command centers, defended by 3 of their massive world ships. Now those same vessels were adrift and powerless, their crews broken by 2 years of warfare they had never been designed to fight. "Open a channel," Webb ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that had once been beautiful by hegemony standards. Commander Zalith of the Vega fleet was tall and elegant, with skin that shifted through patterns of light. But now those patterns were chaotic and broken, reflecting the mental state of someone whose entire worldview had collapsed. "Human Admiral," Zalith said, its voice carrying harmonics of defeat, "we offer surrender in accordance with the protocols established at Rigel." Webb leaned back in his chair. The Rigel protocols had been humanity's idea, a set of rules for how former hegemony forces could integrate with the new galactic order. Unlike the aliens' methods, humans believed in redemption rather than permanent punishment. "Where are the sanctuary worlds in this sector?" Webb asked. "I will transmit the coordinates," Zalith replied. 7 worlds contain displaced species from our cleansing operations over the past 1,000,000 years. The total population is approximately 40 billion beings. 40 billion people who had been torn from their homes simply because they dared to explore beyond their birth worlds. Webb felt the familiar anger rise in his chest, but he forced it down. Anger had won them the war, but it wouldn't help them win the peace. "What about the technology transfers?" Webb continued. "Our quantum harmony generators, stellar engineering equipment, and planetary relocation systems will be transmitted to your science teams," Zalith said. "We ask only that you remember we are no longer your enemies." Dr. Vasquez, now serving as the Chief Science Officer of the Liberation Fleet, stepped forward. "Commander Zalith, there's something we need to understand. The hegemony ruled for 12 million years. You had technology that could move stars and reshape matter at will. How did you lose to species you considered primitive?" The alien commander was quiet for a long moment, its light patterns dimming. "We forgot what it meant to struggle. We eliminated chaos from our existence so completely that we could not comprehend beings who thrived on it. Your weapons used principles we had evolved beyond: emotion, unpredictability, the willingness to die for abstract concepts." Zalith paused, then continued. "But more than that, we lost because we believed our own propaganda. We told ourselves we were saving the galaxy from violence and chaos. We never considered that some things are worth fighting for, even if the fight seems hopeless." Webb nodded. "And now? Now we learn to live in a galaxy where order is not absolute, where younger species make their own choices, even if those choices lead to conflict." Zalith's patterns brightened slightly. "It is. Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Welcome to being human," Webb said with a slight smile. "You'll get used to it." After the transmission ended, Chen turned to Webb. "Sir, we're receiving reports from Liberation fleets throughout the sector. The Capella system surrendered yesterday, and the Arcturus fleet is requesting negotiation terms. At this rate, the war will be over within the year." Webb studied the galactic map on the main display. Red dots marked former hegemony strongholds, most of them now showing green as they transitioned to Alliance control. It was a transformation that would have been impossible to imagine just 2 years earlier. "What about the sanctuary worlds?" he asked. "War Chief Craxon's fleet has already liberated 6 systems," Chen replied. "The beings we're finding, Admiral, some of them have been imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years. Entire civilizations that existed before humanity even discovered fire." Vasquez pulled up images from the liberated worlds on her tablet. "We're seeing incredible diversity, Admiral. Species that evolved from environments we can barely imagine. Some of them have technologies that complement our chaos-based systems perfectly." Webb examined the images of strange and wonderful beings emerging from their prison worlds. Many were confused and afraid, having been raised for generations to believe that the galaxy outside their sanctuaries was too dangerous for them to explore. But others remembered their origins and burned with the same desire for freedom that had driven humanity to rebellion. "How are they adapting to liberation?" Webb asked. "Better than expected," Chen replied. "Most species are eager to reclaim their independence. The Zephyrians from the Altair system have already requested permission to rebuild their homeworld. The Crystalline Collective wants to establish new colonies in the Orion Arm." Dr. Santos, now serving as the fleet's strategic advisor, joined the conversation from her station. "Admiral, we're facing a logistical challenge we never anticipated. With 47 species now part of the Alliance, coordinating expansion and resource allocation is becoming incredibly complex. Webb had been expecting this problem. What do you recommend? We need to establish a new form of galactic government, Santos said. Something that ensures freedom while preventing the kind of unchecked expansion that the hegemony used to justify their rule. No central authority, Webb said firmly. That's how the hegemony started, as protectors who gradually became dictators. Agreed, Vasquez added. But we need some kind of framework for cooperation. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, mutual defense pacts. Chen pulled up a proposal on the main screen. We've been working with representatives from the other liberated species. They're calling it the Galactic Cooperation Compact. Each species maintains complete sovereignty over their own worlds and colonies, but agrees to certain basic principles. Webb read through the document. The principles were simple. No species could be prevented from expanding to unclaimed worlds. Conflicts would be resolved through negotiation rather than warfare when possible. And most importantly, no single group could claim authority over others based on technological advancement or age. It's not perfect, Webb admitted. There will still be conflicts, territorial disputes, probably even wars. But they'll be our conflicts, Santos pointed out. Our choices, our mistakes to learn from. A new voice cut into the conversation as War Chief Craxon appeared on the communication screen. The alien leader's species resembled massive bears with crystalline fur, and his voice carried the weight of someone who had spent decades fighting for freedom. Admiral Webb, Craxon said, we have received reports from the Outer Rim territories. The last major hegemony stronghold has agreed to surrender. The war is over. The bridge fell silent. After 2 years of constant fighting, the word seemed almost impossible to believe. What are the terms? Webb asked. Complete technological transfer, full disclosure of all sanctuary worlds and trials for the remaining hegemony leadership, Craxon replied. They also request that we allow them to establish a single world where former hegemony members can live, according to their traditional ways. Webb considered this. A reservation for gods? In essence, yes. They would have no authority beyond their world, no ability to interfere with other species, but they could maintain their ordered society for those who cannot adapt to chaos. It was an ironic reversal of the original hegemony policy, but Webb saw the wisdom in it. Agreed. Everyone deserves the right to choose how they live, even if they choose order over freedom. Over the following months, the galaxy began to transform in ways that would have horrified the former hegemony leadership. New colonies sprouted on worlds that had been forbidden for millions of years. Trade routes opened between species that had never known each other existed. Technologies developed by different evolutionary paths began to merge in unexpected ways. Humanity found itself in a unique position. Their chaos-based weapons and unpredictable tactics had been the key to breaking hegemony rule. But their diplomatic skills and willingness to include former enemies in the peace process made them natural mediators in the new galactic order. Admiral Webb, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Terran Space Forces, established his headquarters on New Geneva. The rebuilt colony had become a symbol of human resilience and the first meeting place for the new Galactic Council. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said during one of their weekly briefings, we're receiving some interesting reports from the exploration fleets. It seems the galaxy is much larger and more diverse than the hegemony ever let on. She activated a holographic display showing the known galaxy. Large sections that had been marked as empty space in hegemony records were now revealing signs of life and civilization. They didn't just contain aggressive species, Vasquez explained. They prevented any contact between species that might collaborate against them. There are entire regions of the galaxy that have been isolated for millions of years. Webb studied the display. How many species do we estimate are out there? Potentially thousands, maybe tens of thousands. The hegemony kept everyone separated to maintain control. And now they're all free to meet each other, to trade, to fight, to form alliances, to make mistakes and learn from them. Vasquez smiled. It's going to be chaos. Good, Webb said. Order is overrated. 6 months later, Webb stood once again on the observation deck of the Retribution. But now the ship was in orbit around Earth. Below him, the planet glowed with the lights of 8 billion people who had refused to accept extinction. Colonel Chen joined him at the window. The new colony ships are ready for launch, she reported. 50 vessels, each carrying 10,000 volunteers. They'll establish settlements in 12 different star systems over the next 5 years. Webb nodded. Any problems with the local species? Actually, the opposite. Most of them are requesting human advisors to help them establish their own expansion programs. Apparently, our reputation for successful rebellion has spread. Webb chuckled. We've gone from being considered too violent to expand beyond Earth to being asked to teach other species how to fight for their freedom. The galaxy has changed, Admiral. The hegemony's 12 million years of enforced peace are over. Some regions are seeing conflicts as species reclaim territory or settle old grievances, but they're also seeing unprecedented cooperation and technological advancement. Any regrets? Webb asked. Chen was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I wonder what the galaxy would have been like if the hegemony had been right. If we had accepted containment and learned to live in peace within our solar system. And then I remember the 20 million colonists who were taken from us. The thousands of species kept prisoner for crimes like curiosity and ambition. The civilizations that were erased simply because they wanted to explore beyond their homeworlds. Chen's voice hardened. No, we made the right choice. Webb looked out at the stars, now filled with the ships of dozens of species all working to build their own futures. It wasn't perfect. There would be conflicts, mistakes, probably even tragedies as young civilizations learned to navigate the complex realities of galactic politics. But it was theirs, not imposed from above by self-appointed guardians, but chosen by the species themselves. A communication alert chimed, and Harold Zephan's voice filled the observation deck. The former hegemony leader had survived the final battle, though greatly diminished in power and influence. Admiral Webb, Zephan said, its voice now carrying overtones of something that might have been respect. I contact you from the hegemony sanctuary world. Our people are adapting to their new circumstances. How are they managing? Webb asked. With difficulty. Many cannot comprehend a universe without absolute order, but some, particularly the younger generation, are beginning to understand what you meant when you spoke of freedom. And you? I am learning, Zephan admitted. I have begun to study human literature, trying to understand the concepts that drove your rebellion. I find your stories of individuals choosing death over surrender to be illuminating. Webb smiled. Any favorites? There is a poem by one of your poets, Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage. Rage against the dying of the light. I believe I am beginning to understand what it means to rage against dying lights. After the transmission ended, Chen looked at Webb with surprise. Who would have thought the gods would learn poetry? Everyone can learn, Webb replied. That's what makes the universe worth fighting for. As the Retribution prepared to leave Earth orbit for another patrol of the expanding human territories, Webb took one last look at his homeworld. The planet that had been sentenced to extinction was now the unofficial capital of the most successful revolution in galactic history. Humanity had proven that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. They had shown the galaxy that monsters could be heroes, that chaos could defeat order, and that sometimes the greatest act of wisdom was the refusal to be wise. The stars were calling, and humanity was finally free to answer.
The red alert siren wailed through the corridors of United Earth Command Headquarters. Admiral Harris glanced up from his holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by flashing emergency lights. The distress beacon was real and urgent. Sir, we've confirmed the signal. It's the research vessel Horizon. Last known position at the edge of the Cygnus sector, reported Communications Officer Taylor, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Admiral Harris nodded grimly. The Horizon was one of Earth's most advanced research vessels, with a crew of 37 brilliant scientists and engineers. They had been mapping an uncharted region when their regular transmission suddenly stopped 3 days ago. Play the message, Harris ordered. The room fell silent as a scratchy voice filled the command center. This is Captain Bell of the UES Horizon. We've encountered something. Unknown vessels approaching. Our engines are damaged. We need immediate assistance. There's something strange about these ships. There. The message cut to static. That's all we received, sir, Taylor said. It repeats every 12 minutes. Harris paced the floor, his mind racing through protocols and available resources. How far are they from the nearest military outpost? Too far, sir. At least 4 days at maximum speed. And our closest vessel? Lieutenant Cooper consulted his screen. The UES Mercy is currently in the neighboring sector, sir. Rescue and medical vessel under Captain James Walker. They could reach the horizon in approximately 18 hours. Harris nodded. The Mercy was perfect. A state-of-the-art rescue ship designed specifically for deep space emergency operations, and James Walker was one of their best. Send the coordinates to the Mercy, and have the Defender and Protector divert to provide escort. I don't like the sound of unknown vessels. Yes, sir. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Mercy, studying the distress coordinates with a frown. At 42, Walker had spent more than half his life in space. His calm demeanor and steady hand had saved hundreds of lives over the years. The crew called him the Rock behind his back, a nickname he pretended not to know about. "Captain, we've received the mission brief from command," said his first officer, Lieutenant Emma Reed. "They want us to investigate a distress call from the research vessel Horizon." Walker nodded. "Set course immediately. Maximum speed. The Defender and Protector will rendezvous with us near the target location to provide security," Reed added, passing him the detailed information. Walker reviewed the data, his expression serious. "Get the rescue teams ready. Have Dr. Miller prepare the medical bay for potential casualties." "Yes, sir." As Reed left to relay his orders, Walker turned to the viewport, watching the stars blur as the Mercy accelerated to top speed. Something about this mission felt wrong. In his 20 years of service, he'd learned to trust his instincts. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Miller organized her supplies with practiced efficiency. At 36, she was the youngest chief medical officer in the fleet, known for her brilliant diagnostic skills and steady hands under pressure. "Doctor, the captain wants us prepared for rescue operations," said her assistant, Ben. Lisa nodded. "Let's set up for multiple trauma scenarios, full burn units, pressure injuries, and radiation exposure protocols. Better over-prepared than surprised." As her team transformed the medical bay into an emergency trauma center, Lisa reviewed the Horizon's crew manifest. 37 souls, scientists mostly, with minimal combat training. If they'd encountered hostiles. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Security Chief Mark Davis. Tall and imposing, Davis had been a Marine before joining the rescue fleet. "Doc, I'm coordinating with your team on extraction procedures," he said. "If there's a threat present when we arrive, we'll need to work fast." "My people will be ready," she assured him. "How bad do you think it is?" Davis's expression was grim. The captain's concerned. The message mentioned unknown ships, but gave no details. Command hasn't had contact with anyone out this far. Lisa felt a chill. The universe was vast and mostly unexplored. Humanity had encountered other intelligent species before, but those contacts had been peaceful, if sometimes awkward. Could this be different? 18 hours later, the Mercy decelerated as it approached the Horizon's last known coordinates. The military escorts, Defender and Protector, had arrived just minutes earlier and taken flanking positions. "Scan the area," Walker ordered. "Any sign of the Horizon or other vessels?" The sensor operator, Rodriguez, worked her console. "Picking up debris, sir. And, yes, I have the Horizon. Still intact, but showing significant damage to the engine section. Life support appears to be functioning, but at reduced capacity. Any other ships?" "No, sir, not at present." Walker studied the tactical display. The debris field suggested a violent incident, not an accident. "Communications. Try to raise them." After several attempts, Rodriguez shook her head. "No response, Captain." "What about their emergency beacons? Any signs of life?" "Yes, sir," Rodriguez replied, her voice rising with hope. "I'm detecting multiple life signs aboard. They appear to be concentrated in the central section of the ship." Walker nodded decisively. "Bring us alongside. Lieutenant Reed, prepare 3 rescue teams. Davis will take security point. Dr. Miller accompanies Team 1. Sir, Reed hesitated. What about the unknown vessels from the distress call? That's why we have escorts. The Defender and Protector will maintain position and keep scanning. If anything approaches, they'll warn us. Walker stood. I'll lead Team 1 myself. As the Mercy maneuvered closer to the damaged research vessel, Walker watched through the viewport. The Horizon's sleek hull was scared with what looked like weapons fire, precise hits to engines and communications arrays. This was no accident. It was an attack. Captain, Rodriguez called out suddenly. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the far side of the debris field. They weren't there a moment ago. Walker felt that familiar tightness in his chest. Danger approaching. Define unusual. Sir, they're similar to what we'd see from cloaking technology, but more advanced than anything in our database. Walker's decision was immediate. All hands, battle stations. Recall the preparation teams to defensive positions. Warn the escorts. But even as he gave the order, 3 massive ships shimmered into existence around them. Black, angular vessels with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their design was utterly alien. Sir, they're charging weapons, Rodriguez shouted. Walker's mind raced. His ship was built for rescue, not combat. The escorts were outgunned, but the Horizon still had survivors. Shields to maximum. Get between those ships and the Horizon, he ordered, and send an emergency burst transmission to command. Tell them we've made first contact, and it's hostile. As the alien vessels opened fire, Walker knew their rescue mission had just become something far more dangerous, and if they survived, Earth would need to know what they were facing. The true test was about to begin. The first blast struck the UES Defender before its crew could react. The escort ship's shields flared brilliant blue for 3 seconds before collapsing entirely. The second blast tore through its hull like paper. Defender is hit. Rodriguez shouted as alarms blared across the Mercy's bridge. They've lost power to all main systems. Captain Walker gripped the command rail, mind racing through options, each worse than the last. Status of the Protector. Moving to engage, sir. They're trying to draw fire away from us. Through the viewport, Walker watched the smaller escort ship dart between the alien vessels, its weapons firing continuously. The alien ships barely seemed to notice. Get us closer to the Horizon, Walker ordered. Prepare for emergency docking. We still have a rescue mission to complete. Lieutenant Reed stared at him. Sir, with all due respect. This is what we do, Lieutenant. Walker cut her off. We save lives. As the bridge crew worked frantically, Walker opened a shipwide channel. All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. We will proceed with our mission to rescue survivors from the Horizon. Security teams to emergency stations. Medical teams stand by. This is not a drill. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Miller felt the ship shudder from a glancing hit. Equipment rattled on the shelves as the artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily. Ben, secure those supply cabinets, she ordered calmly while checking the trauma bays. Years of emergency medicine had trained her to function under pressure. Everyone, trauma suits on. We may lose atmosphere in sections. The medical team moved with practiced efficiency despite the fear on their faces. Lisa sealed her own trauma suit, designed to allow medical procedures even in vacuum conditions. The comm unit on the wall crackled to life with Security Chief Davis's voice. Medical team, prepare to receive multiple casualties. First team is about to board the Horizon. We're ready, Lisa replied. How bad is it out there? A pause. Bad. The Protector is holding them off for now, but those alien ships, I've never seen weapons like these. Lisa checked her emergency kit one last time. Save who we can, Mark. That's all we can do. The Mercy shuddered as it maneuvered alongside the damaged research vessel, extending docking tubes to create a stable passage between ships. Walker led the first rescue team himself, Davis at his side. Atmospheric pressure in the horizon is unstable, Davis reported, checking readings on his suit. We'll need to move fast. Walker nodded to the team of 6 security personnel and 3 medical technicians. Remember, survivors first. Any data or research is secondary. As they cycled through the airlock and entered the horizon, emergency lighting cast long shadows through smoke-filled corridors. The internal damage was worse than scans had indicated. Entire sections were open to space, sealed off by emergency bulkheads. Life signs concentrated in the central lab and crew quarters, Davis said, consulting his scanner. This way. They moved quickly through the ship, encountering the first survivors huddled in what had once been the mess hall. 5 frightened scientists looked up in relief at the sight of rescue personnel. Captain Bell, Walker asked the group. A woman with a makeshift bandage around her head stood shakily. Dead. Bridge took a direct hit in the first attack. Her voice was rough. I'm Dr. Matthews, chief researcher. We're getting you out of here, Walker assured her. Can you walk? As the medical technicians treated the wounded, Matthews grabbed Walker's arm. Captain, they weren't just attacking. They were taking people. Walker froze. What? The aliens. They boarded before you arrived. Took at least 10 of our crew. Matthews' eyes were wide with fear. They specifically targeted our genetics team. A cold feeling settled in Walker's stomach. Did you see them? The aliens? Matthews nodded slowly. Tall, gray skin. They seemed curious, like we were specimens. She shuddered. There's something else. The research data. They didn't get it. What research? We found something out here, Captain. Matthews lowered her voice. A massive construction. Some kind of staging area. We documented everything before they attacked. Walker made a quick decision. Where's the data? Secured in the main lab, along with more survivors. On the bridge of the Mercy, Lieutenant Reed watched in horror as the protector erupted in flames, breaking apart under concentrated fire from the alien vessels. Both escorts lost. She reported into the comm. Captain, we've got 3 hostiles closing in. Our shields won't last much longer. Walker's voice came back, tight with tension. We've found 12 survivors so far. There's a secure lab ahead with more. 5 minutes. Reed looked at the tactical display. They didn't have 5 minutes. I'll try to buy you time. She turned to helm control. Evasive pattern delta. Use the debris field for cover. As the Mercy began to move, one of the alien ships broke off to follow. Its strange weapons fired again, blasting through the debris field. They're targeting our engines, Rodriguez called out. They don't want us to leave. Walker and Davis reached the main lab to find 8 more survivors barricaded inside. Among them was a young woman clutching what looked like a simple data drive. Dr. Ryan, Matthews greeted her. You kept it safe. The woman nodded, her hands shaking. Everything we recorded. The facility, the ships, their patterns of movement. It's all here. Walker addressed the group. We need to move now. Our ship is under attack. As they began ushering survivors back toward the docking tube, the ship's emergency system announced in a calm voice. Warning. Hull breach imminent. Section C decompression in 15 seconds. That's between us and the airlock, Davis said urgently. Walker nodded. Alternative route. Through engineering. They redirected, moving as quickly as the injured scientists could manage. Walker kept in constant communication with Reed, the news getting worse with each update. Captain. Reed's voice was grim. They've targeted our docking connection. We need to detach now or risk catastrophic damage. Walker looked at the survivors, still 3 corridors from safety. Negative. We need more time. The ship rocked violently, throwing several people to the floor. That wasn't the aliens, Davis said, checking his scanner. The Horizon's reactor is destabilizing. Walker made the hardest decision of his career. Reed, prepare the escape pods. We can't make it back to the Mercy. On the bridge of the Mercy, Reed stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Horizon's core was going critical, the alien ships were closing in, and the captain was still on the research vessel. Escape pods launching from the Horizon, Rodriguez reported. Reed watched as 3 small pods ejected from the research vessel. Track them. Prepare for recovery. But as the pods accelerated away, the alien vessels changed course to pursue them. They're going after the survivors, Reed realized with horror. She had one option left. All power to engines. Position us between those pods and the alien ships. The Mercy surged forward, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. Reed opened a channel to the pods. Captain, we'll cover your escape. Walker's voice came back, broken by static. Negative, Lieutenant. Get the Mercy out of here. That's an order. Sir, we can still. The data has to reach Earth. Walker's voice was firm. Dr. Miller has it. I'm in Pod 2, drawing their fire. Get her pod to safety. That's my final order. Reed watched as Pod 2 suddenly changed course, heading directly toward the largest alien ship. The aliens immediately focused their attack on it, ignoring the other pods. He's sacrificing himself, someone whispered on the bridge. Reed stood straight, honoring her captain the only way she could. Helm, lock onto Pod 1 and Pod 3. Maximum speed back to Earth territory. As the Mercy turned away, its sensors recorded one final act of defiance. Captain Walker's pod accelerating to maximum speed before colliding with the alien vessel's weapons array in a brilliant flash of light. The diversion worked. The Mercy and the remaining pods slipped away into faster-than-light travel, carrying with them both survivors and crucial information about a new dangerous enemy. The first battle was lost, but Earth would soon know it was at war. The UES Mercy limped into Earth's orbital defense perimeter, its hull scorched and torn. Defense stations immediately dispatched repair drones and medical shuttles as the battered rescue vessel eased into dock. News of the attack had traveled ahead, and a crowd of military officials waited in the arrival bay. Lieutenant Reed stood at attention as Admiral Thomas Stone approached. The Admiral was a legend in the fleet, a tall, imposing man with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. He had also been Captain Walker's mentor. "Report, Lieutenant," Stone said, his voice deceptively calm. Reed swallowed hard. "Sir, Captain Walker and 23 others lost in the attack. 14 survivors recovered from the Horizon, plus 11 of our own crew." Stone's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "And the hostiles?" "Unknown species, sir. 3 vessels with technology beyond anything we've encountered. They attacked without warning or communication." The Admiral nodded toward the medical shuttle where Dr. Lisa Miller was helping transfer the injured survivors. "I understand there's data we need to see." "Yes, sir. Dr. Miller has it secure." Stone moved toward the medical shuttle, Reed following close behind. When they reached Dr. Miller, she was finishing treatment on one of the Horizon scientists. "Doctor," Stone addressed her, "I need that data immediately." Miller looked up, exhaustion evident on her face. "With respect, Admiral, these people need medical attention first." "And they'll get it," Stone assured her. "But if what I've heard is true, we may be facing an imminent threat to Earth itself." Miller hesitated, then pulled a small data drive from her pocket. "Dr. Ryan from the Horizon entrusted this to me. She said it contains everything they discovered." Stone took the drive carefully. "Lieutenant Reed, Dr. Miller, come with me. We need to view this immediately." The command center of Earth Defense Headquarters was locked down. Only the highest-ranking officers present as the data from the Horizon played across the main screen. Dr. Matthews, still bandaged but insistent on being present, narrated what they were seeing. "We discovered this structure about 3 light-years beyond the edge of charted space," she explained as images showed an enormous artificial construction floating in deep space. "At first, we thought it might be abandoned technology from a previous civilization." The next images showed dozens of alien ships moving around the structure. Then we observed these vessels. We kept our distance, using passive sensors only, but after 3 days of observation, they somehow detected us. Admiral Stone leaned forward. How big is this structure? Massive, sir. Our estimates suggest it could house thousands of ships and potentially millions of individuals. The design and purpose appear to be, she hesitated, military in nature. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A staging area, Stone said quietly. For what? Dr. Ryan, who had insisted on joining despite her injuries, spoke up. For invasion, Admiral. We intercepted and partly decoded some of their communications. They refer to this region as Harvest Space. They've been taking ships for years, not just ours. She tapped commands into the console, bringing up new images. These showed what appeared to be laboratories with various alien species in containment units. Among them were unmistakably human forms. They're studying us, Dr. Ryan continued. All of us. Different species from different worlds. We believe they're assessing threats and resources. Dr. Miller stepped forward. There's more, Admiral. The final data packet contains medical scans of one of their ships. The Horizon managed to get detailed readings during the initial encounter. She pointed to specific sections. Their biology is unlike anything in our databases, but their technology, parts of it seem adapted from other species. They're scavengers, Stone concluded, taking what they want from others. Not just scavengers, Dr. Matthews corrected. They're methodical, strategic. They call themselves the Vex in their communications, and they don't see other species as equals. They see us as specimens, resources to be studied and harvested. General Ward, head of Earth's military forces, spoke for the first time. How many ships do they have? From what we observed, at least 300 in that facility alone. And there could be more elsewhere. The command center erupted in urgent discussions. Some officers argued for immediate diplomatic contact, others for preparing Earth's defenses. Admiral Stone silenced them with a raised hand. What happened to Captain Walker exactly? Lieutenant Reed straightened. He sacrificed himself to ensure our escape, sir. Used his pod as a weapon against their lead ship to buy us time. Stone nodded slowly. And they were attacking a rescue mission. An unarmed research vessel. They took prisoners for study. He turned to General Ward. These aren't the actions of a civilization interested in diplomacy. 2 days of heated debate followed in Earth's United Council. Political leaders from around the world argued over the appropriate response. Some favored caution and attempted communication. Others demanded immediate military action. In the end, they compromised. Earth would attempt to establish contact while simultaneously preparing for the worst. The diplomatic message was simple, a request for peaceful communication and the return of any human captives. It was broadcast toward the coordinates of the alien structure in all known formats. 3 days later, the response came, but not in words. Outpost Sierra is gone, General Ward reported grimly to the emergency council meeting. Complete destruction. 432 personnel lost. The room fell silent. Outpost Sierra was a scientific research station in the outer solar system, far from any possible accident or natural disaster. Admiral Stone's voice was cold, and the message. General Ward played the transmission. A simple signal in binary code, easily translated. Specimens do not make demands. The council chamber erupted in outrage. Admiral Stone stood, silencing the room with his presence more than his voice. They've made their position clear. They see us as lab rats, not equals. He turned to the world president. Madam President, I request activation of Defense Protocol Omega. The president's face was ashen, but her voice remained steady. Explain for those unfamiliar with the protocol, Admiral. Full military mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every resource directed toward one goal, ensuring the survival of humanity. Stone's eyes swept the room. They've studied us enough to know where our outposts are. The research vessel wasn't their first encounter with humans, just the first one with survivors who made it back to warn us. Dr. Miller, invited to the meeting as a witness, spoke up. The Horizon data shows they were particularly interested in human genetics and neural patterns. Their labs had more human specimens than any other species. Special interest in humans? The president asked. Yes, Miller confirmed. And based on dated records we found, they've been studying us for at least 7 years. The revelation sent a chill through the room. 7 years of abductions and experiments, all unknown to Earth until now. The president stood. The vote is called. Activation of Defense Protocol Omega requires 2/3 majority. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Stone was given command of Earth's response force that same day. As he left the council chamber, he paused beside a memorial wall where the names of lost ships and crews were inscribed. With a steady hand, he traced the freshly added name, Captain James Walker. I taught you everything I knew about space, James, he said quietly. Now you've taught me the final lesson. Some enemies can't be reasoned with. He turned to Dr. Miller, who waited nearby. We'll need everything you learned from their attack patterns, everything about their technology. Miller nodded. Already working on it, Admiral. One of the Horizon scientists noticed something about their stealth systems before they were attacked. A vulnerability we might exploit. Stone's expression hardened into resolve. Then let's get to work. Operation Righteous Fury begins now. As they walked away, neither noticed the small alien probe that had infiltrated Earth's defensive perimeter, silently recording everything it saw before transmitting back to its masters. The Vex now knew Earth was preparing for war. What they didn't know was just how terrible humanity's vengeance would be. Admiral Stone stood in the massive underground facility known simply as the Forge. 3 weeks had passed since the vote to activate Defense Protocol Omega, and Earth was transforming at an unprecedented pace. Below him, thousands of workers moved like ants across factory floors that stretched for miles. Robotic assembly lines constructed ship components, while engineers tested new weapon systems. The air hummed with activity and purpose. Quite a sight, isn't it? General Ward said as he joined Stone at the railing. Every weapons factory on the planet is running at full capacity. 6 new capital ships completed, 15 more under construction. Stone nodded. And the special modifications. Being implemented as we speak. Dr. Miller's team has been working nonstop. The mention of Dr. Miller drew Stone's attention to the research section of the facility. After surviving the attack on the Mercy, Lisa Miller had been appointed head of a special division tasked with understanding Vex technology. Let's see how they're progressing, Stone said. The 2 men made their way through security checkpoints to the research wing. Inside the main laboratory, they found Dr. Miller examining what appeared to be fragments of alien metal, debris recovered from Captain Walker's final act of defiance. Admiral. She greeted him without looking up from her work. Dark circles under her eyes revealed weeks of minimal sleep. Progress report ready as requested. Stone took the offered data pad. Talk me through it, Doctor. Miller gestured to the fragments. These are components from the Vex stealth system. When Captain Walker rammed their ship, the collision damaged their cloaking array. She pointed to specific sections. The technology is remarkable, but it has a fundamental flaw. A flaw we can exploit? General Ward asked. Absolutely, Miller confirmed. Their stealth system bends light around their ships, making them invisible to normal sensors. But it creates a specific energy signature at the quantum level, something our standard equipment isn't designed to detect. She led them to a testing chamber where technicians were installing new devices on what appeared to be a torpedo casing. We've developed quantum resonance scanners that can detect their cloaked ships. And these, she indicated the torpedo-like devices, are modified EMP weapons calibrated specifically to disrupt their stealth systems. Stone studied the weapons with approval. How many can we produce? With current resources, enough to equip our entire fleet within 2 weeks. Make it 1 week, Stone ordered. We've intercepted communications suggesting increased Vex activity near their staging area. Miller nodded. We'll make it happen. As they left the laboratory, Stone turned to General Ward. What's the status of the misinformation campaign? Ward smiled grimly. Proceeding according to plan. We've deliberately leaked reports of shield vulnerabilities and outdated defensive systems through channels we know are compromised. Our military responses appear disorganized and panicked, and our actual preparations hidden. The new fleet is assembled in the shadow of Jupiter, out of sight from any observation. Strike teams are ready. If the Vex are watching, they see exactly what we want them to see. A frightened civilization scrambling to mount a defense. Stone allowed himself a small smile. Good, now show me the flagship. The journey to Jupiter's shadow took less than an hour in the high-speed military shuttle. As they approached the hidden fleet, Stone felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Before them floated Earth's response to the Vex threat. 60 warships arranged in perfect formation. At the center was the UES Retribution, the largest warship humans had ever constructed. My God, Ward whispered. 3 weeks ago, half of these ships were still in pieces. Stone nodded. Never underestimate humans with a purpose. Their shuttle docked with the Retribution, where Commander Robert Jackson waited to greet them. Jackson had been Walker's friend and classmate at the academy. Admiral on deck. Jackson called as Stone entered the bridge. The crew snapped to attention. At ease, Stone said, taking in the advanced command center. Status report, Commander. Ship at 98% readiness, sir. Weapons systems fully operational. Miller's quantum scanners installed and calibrated. Crew at full complement. Stone nodded with approval. And the special modifications. Jackson led him to a secure tactical room off the main bridge. Inside, a holographic display showed detailed schematics of the Vex staging area, compiled from the Horizon's data. The Retribution has been equipped with an enhanced version of the quantum resonance technology, Jackson explained. Not just for detection, but for targeting. We can hit their cloaked ships with pinpoint accuracy. He brought up another schematic showing a massive weapon array along the Retribution's spine. The main cannon has been modified to fire a concentrated quantum disruption wave. When triggered, it will disable all Vex stealth systems within range, rendering their entire fleet visible. Range. Half a light year, sir. Stone studied the schematics carefully. And our other advantages. We've analyzed their attack patterns from the Mercy incident. They're predictable, overconfident in their technology. They don't expect resistance because they've never encountered it before. Jackson brought up tactical simulations. Our ships have been programmed with countermeasures for every strategy they've shown. What about the research specimens? The captured humans? Jackson's expression darkened. Special Forces teams are prepared for boarding operations. Priority is given to locating and rescuing captives. Stone turned to Ward. The President has authorized the use of the Nova Protocol, if necessary. Both men understood what that meant. The Nova Protocol was Earth's most destructive weapon, capable of triggering an artificial supernova. It was a last resort, only to be used if Earth itself was threatened with destruction. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Ward said quietly. Back on Earth, Dr. Miller worked with her team to finalize the last components of the countermeasure technology. As she calibrated a sensor array, a young technician approached her. Dr. Miller, I've analyzed the communication patterns as you requested. Miller looked up. And, you were right. The technician confirmed. The Vex transmissions show a 30-second cycling pattern in their encryption. There's a brief window where their communications are vulnerable. Miller immediately sent the findings to Admiral Stone. This was the final piece they needed, a way to listen to enemy communications during battle. In her private quarters that night, Miller looked at a photo of the Mercy's crew, taken just days before the mission. Captain Walker stood in the center, his steady gaze looking directly at the camera. "We're ready, Captain," she whispered. "They won't see us coming." On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Stone received the final intelligence report. Vex ships were mobilizing around their staging area. The leaked misinformation had worked. They were preparing to launch what they believed would be a surprise attack on an unprepared Earth. Stone opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. For 3 weeks, we have prepared while letting our enemy believe we are weak. They attacked an unarmed research vessel. They destroyed a rescue mission. They took our people as specimens for their laboratories. He paused, letting his words sink in. Tomorrow, they will learn what happens when humanity is pushed too far. When they see our fleet, it will be the last thing many of them ever see. We are not specimens. We are not prey. We are humanity, and we will show them the meaning of vengeance. Throughout the fleet, crews made final preparations. Weapons were checked, systems tested, and personal messages sent to loved ones on Earth. No one had illusions. Many would not return, but none would falter. The Vex were coming to harvest. Instead, they would meet the full fury of a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to fight and survive against all odds. Earth was ready. The Vex invasion fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships arranged in attack formation, their black hulls absorbing the distant sunlight. Aboard the lead vessel, the Vex commander surveyed the tactical display with what passed for satisfaction in its species. Their intelligence had been perfect. Earth's defensive grid showed minimal activity, just a scattered collection of outdated ships and orbital platforms. The humans had no idea what was coming. "Begin the approach," the commander ordered. Stealth systems at maximum. The massive fleet advanced slowly, their cloaking technology hiding them from conventional detection. Occasional bursts of encrypted communication passed between vessels, all showing the same confidence. This would be a simple harvesting operation. They had no idea they were being watched. Deep in the shadow of Jupiter, Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, observing the quantum resonance scanner displays. Every Vex ship appeared as a bright point of light, their supposed invisibility useless against Earth's new technology. "They've taken the bait," Stone said calmly. "All ships maintain position. Let them commit fully to the approach." Commander Jackson nodded. "They're arranging into harvest formation, just as the simulations predicted." The bridge was silent as they watched the enemy advance. The Vex ships were spreading out to surround Earth, positioning themselves for what they believed would be an overwhelming surprise attack. "Signal the fleet," Stone ordered. "Prepare to execute Operation Righteous Fury on my mark." Throughout the hidden Earth fleet, crews moved to battle stations. On the Retribution, Dr. Miller monitored the quantum disruption cannon from a specialized control room. "Disruption cannon charged and ready, Admiral," she reported. "Firing solution calculated." Stone checked the tactical display one final time. The Vex were fully committed now, their ships beginning to power up weapon systems as they prepared to decloak and attack. "Now," Stone said softly, "let's show them what humanity is capable of." The Vex commander was moments away from giving the order to decloak when alarms blared across the command deck. Before it could react, a massive energy wave washed over the entire fleet. "Stealth systems failing," a subordinate reported in their clicking language. "All vessels becoming visible." "Impossible," the commander hissed. "There are no." The words died as the tactical display updated. Where moments before there had appeared to be nothing but empty space, now 60 Earth warships appeared, arranged in a perfect battle formation. At their center was a vessel larger than any the Vex had ever encountered from humans. "Unknown human fleet detected," another subordinate called out. "They were waiting for us." The commander stared in disbelief. How did they? "Message incoming from the human flagship," interrupted a communications officer. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Stone's face, his expression cold and determined. "This is Admiral Thomas Stone of the United Earth Fleet," he began, his voice transmitted across all frequencies. "You attacked an unarmed research vessel. You destroyed a rescue mission. You took our people as specimens. Each statement was delivered with increasing intensity. Now you will learn why that was the worst mistake your species has ever made. Before the Vex commander could respond, Stone's image vanished. In the next instant, the Earth fleet opened fire. The first volley from Earth's ships struck with devastating precision. The quantum resonance technology allowed them to target the most vulnerable points on the Vex vessels, points identified from the data recovered by the Horizon. Direct hits across the enemy front line, reported Jackson. 27 vessels disabled or destroyed in the initial attack. Stone nodded. Begin Phase 2. Release the strike teams. From the Retribution and several other capital ships, smaller vessels launched towards the Vex staging area. Each carried elite special forces with a dual mission. Rescue any human captives and plant quantum disruptor bombs at key structural points. Dr. Miller. Stone called over the comm. Status of the enemy communications. In her control room, Miller monitored the encryption patterns. Their communication security is failing, Admiral. We're intercepting their orders. They're trying to regroup around their command vessel. Perfect. Target the secondary formation with EMP weapons. I want their ship-to-ship coordination disrupted. The battle unfolded exactly as Earth had planned. The Vex, accustomed to overwhelming unprepared opponents, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their formations were broken, their communications disrupted, their stealth systems, their greatest advantage, rendered useless. Inside the Vex staging area, Team Leader Alex Reyes led his squad through dark corridors, following the life sign readings on their tactical display. Lab section ahead, he reported quietly. Multiple human signatures detected. They breached the sealed door to find rows of containment units, each holding a human in suspended animation. Among them were the missing crew members from the Horizon. Begin extraction, Reyes ordered. Medical team, prep them for transport. Demo team, set charges as planned. As his team worked, Reyes moved to the central control console. Using translation software developed from the Horizon data, he accessed the Vex research logs. What he found chilled him to the bone. The Vex had been experimenting on humans for years, trying to understand what made them different from other species they had encountered. They were afraid of us, he realized as he read further. They saw something in humans that scared them. According to the logs, the Vex had been disturbed by humanity's rapid technological advancement and remarkable adaptability. They had accelerated their harvesting operations specifically to prevent humans from becoming a threat. Too late for that, Reyes murmured as he downloaded the data and planted the final charge. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Stone watched as the battle turned decisively in Earth's favor. The Vex fleet, once imposing, was now in disarray. Sir, Jackson reported, the rescue teams have recovered all identified human captives. Extraction successful. Stone nodded. And the charges? In place and ready to detonate on your command. Stone opened a channel to all Earth ships. All vessels, complete final attack pattern and withdraw to safe distance. The Earth fleet executed a coordinated assault that drove the remaining Vex ships toward their staging area. As they retreated, Stone opened a direct channel to the Vex command ship. This is Admiral Stone. Your fleet is defeated. Your research facility is compromised. You have one opportunity to surrender and release all specimens of all species you have captured. The response came quickly, a series of energy blasts aimed directly at the Retribution. Stone's expression hardened. As expected, they don't understand diplomacy. He turned to Jackson. Signal the strike teams to detonate the charges. Across the massive Vex staging area, quantum disruptor bombs activated simultaneously. The resulting chain reaction tore through the structure, releasing energy equivalent to a small supernova. The Vex command ship and their remaining vessels were caught in the expanding wave of destruction. 3 days later, aboard the Retribution, Dr. Miller stood beside Admiral Stone as they watched the rescued captives being treated in the medical bay. Among them were scientists from the Horizon, still alive after their ordeal. The Vex kept extensive records of their operations, Miller said, reviewing the data Reyes had recovered. There are coordinates for at least 5 more of their facilities throughout this sector of space. Stone nodded slowly. Then our work isn't finished. No, sir, Miller agreed. But they'll be expecting us now. Good, Stone said. Let them expect us. Let them fear us. The next time they see an Earth vessel, they'll remember what happened here. He turned to the view screen, looking out at the stars beyond. We need to contact the other species they've been harvesting. Form alliances. No one should be treated as specimens. And if we encounter more Vex. Stone's gaze was steady. Then we'll respond the same way. Earth protects its own. And we protect those who cannot protect themselves. On the main communications channel, an encoded message was prepared for broadcast across all known space. It contained images of the battle, recordings of the Vex research logs, and a simple statement. This is a message from Earth to all who would threaten us or others. We came to space in peace. We sent scientists to learn. We dispatched rescue ships to save lives. But when our peaceful missions were attacked, we responded with the full measure of our strength. Remember what happened here. Earth stands ready to extend friendship to all peaceful species. But those who attack innocent missions, those who harvest sentient beings as specimens, you have been warned. Earth will respond with complete vengeance. The message was sent, and a new chapter in humanity's story among the stars began.